Michael has everything she ever wanted.
Proudly South African Nissan pair Hannes Grobler and Richard Leek dominate day one of one of the toughest Toyota 1000 desert races ever. Atang Magegheneni well on his way to realizing his dream of becoming the first Motswana to win his home race after a faultless performance in the Total Jimco. And reigning Class E champions Mark Cronje and Chris Birkin deliver another giant-killing performance to bring their Castrol Toyota Hilux home third overall.
The South African Off-Road Championship is proudly brought to you by ABSA. Speak to ABSA first for fast, flexible vehicle finance. We can also structure an asset finance solution to suit your business needs. It's really never been easier.
It was an early start for some on Saturday as they prepared for racing Section 1 of the Toyota 1000 Desert Race, round 3 of the ABSA Off-Road Championship. With 74 vehicles leaving the start line in the space of 12 minutes, the dust would make it sheer hell for crews to find their way, let alone race in the opening stages of the event. Local fans turned out in their thousands at the start and elsewhere on the route. Despite the weather having turned cold and the skies being overcast, there was no forecast of rain, which would have helped settle the dust. What were the chances of an older beam axle special vehicle like the Plastotech Raceco, crewed by Richard Schilling and Rob Walk, beating the more fancied A-arm Jimcos and Bats?
There's one about 2 seconds behind us, but we're there. I think more so the fact that in an old car, this car is nearly 20 years old, we're the 6th special overall. Kind of says something about good old cars can still do well, and just keep going today. Looking forward to it.
We don't mind starting third. We'd like to finish first though. No, it's advantageous in the morning. The bush is very thick. So look, we went as quickly as we could yesterday, but with a lot of reserve. So hopefully halfway through the morning we should get to the front. But it's a 2-day race. It's 1,000 kilometers, 500 each day, so it's a long way. We actually got to look after the car, not to have any problems with punches or wrong slotting, because we found yesterday it was a little bit difficult to navigate, but otherwise it was great. So we hope to set a good pace, which we will. We've got a good start position. Only got 2 cars in front, so we look forward to a good race, man.
Ons lê nou op die oomblik spring ons tweede in die klas weg, so ek gaan kyk of ons die posisie kan tweede hou en dan môre oorvat, kyk of ons dan kan klaarmaak. So ons moet môre, vandag moet ons maar ewe hard ry, want die ouens se bakkies is almal ewe vinnig teëstaan, so ons sal moet hard ry om voor te bly en ons hoop alles loop goed. Ons voorbereiding is reg vir die bakkie. So hoop maar hou maar duime vas.
We're just going to have to try and sort of keep a fair distance behind the Nissans and the Fords, because they're pretty quick, and we'll see what happens at the end of the day.
It's a good place to start second, especially if you have to just get the cattle out of the way and also look for the road. There's some places today that you have just to follow the markers, and that's not always the easiest to do if you're in the front.
Just what made the boss quick. I looked at him.
The moment of truth had arrived for Glyn Hall, who showed on Friday that he had lost none of his talent gained over many years of rallying. But how would he perform in the tough world of off-road racing, where endurance is the key? The Minister of Environment, Wildlife and Tourism, Mrs. Pelanomi Vernon, flagged off the leading group. Paul and Jordan were in a determined mood, and with no dust, they were able to steadily open up the gap on the rest of the field. Grobler and Leek weren't too concerned about starting second and had decided to play a waiting game up until the designated service point at Manshwabisi, and then attack on the way back to Gaborone. Woolridge and Scholthammer had opted for a similar strategy and were confident that the Team Ford Racing Ranger had the measure of the proudly South African Nissans, where Smith and Minute had only one objective in mind: beat the trucks. 2000 Toyota 1000 winners Mark Corbett and Jean Moore were out to win a second time and intended staying out of the way of tree stumps, which ended their run in 2003, while Magegheneni and Carolyn had also decided to play a waiting game on day one. Paul and Jordan retired after 13 kilometres, and it was now all over to Grobler and Leek, who had extended their lead over Woolridge and Scholthammer to just over 6 minutes in a race that was proving to be extremely harsh on man and machine. The Team Ford Racing pair had pulled out all the stops, but just couldn't close the gap on the leading Nissan. Interestingly, the race was taking far longer to complete than predicted, with crews spending more than 7.5 hours in the cockpit. Atang Machecheneni and Bux Carolyn's race was going according to schedule. The new partnership hadn't picked up any punctures or mechanical problems on the Total Jimco and was virtually assured of the overnight lead. Castrol Toyota pair Mark Cronje and Chris Birkin managed to get by Cox and Pitchford when they started running low on fuel in the Arnold Chacks Cars Nissan Hardbody and were forced to slow their pace dramatically. The Class D championship leaders had built up a 7-minute lead over the Nissan crew, and right now the odds were not in favour of Cox and Pitchford scoring a second successive Class D win. Shamir Variawa and Nadeem Dudhir started 72nd in the Oven Fresh Biscuits Porter, but a storming drive saw them finish in second place on day one ahead of Clint Gibson and Mike Brown, who picked up 2 punches and relied on a borrowed wheel to get to the overnight stop. There was an almighty battle raging in Class E with Freiburg businessmen Hugo and Jaap de Bruin, who had won the class on their last 2 outings in the Castrol Toyota Hilux 2.7i, just managing to keep Zane Pierce and Henny Vosloo in the Castrol Toyota Hilux KZTE, raced by Cassie Coetzee and Oki Fari last year, at bay. Gary Berthold and Siegfried Rosso in the Advanced Soft Nissan Hardbody had moved up to 10th on the road, 7th overall in the production vehicle category, and 3rd in Class D, ahead of Class D winners on the Nissan Dealer 400, Paolo Piazzomosso and Rod Herring in the Castrol Toyota Hilux, who had been slowed by a puncture and overheating caused by a faulty cooling fan that was repaired at the designated service point. Consistency had paid off for Nielsen Zelda van der Walt in the Nissan Hardbody, who are now 3rd in Class E and 2 minutes ahead of JP Augustin and Johan Dubel in the Class D GBS Racing Nissan Hardbody, who are in turn almost 3 minutes ahead of Henry Zematin and Bodo Schwegler in the Mastercraft PlayStation Pajero, which was performing far better than in recent months. Nick Harper and Andrew Chalupsky were 4th overall in the special vehicle category and, apart from 3 punches, had had a trouble-free run in the BAT racing entry. Arnold Duplessis and George Baker's only problem on the BB Auto Nissan Hardbody was a puncture 50 kilometres from the finish. The odds of them making up the 45-minute deficit on the Class D leaders, Cronje and Birkin, were rather slim. Mohammed Noble and Richard Hope were the only survivors in Class S and simply had to finish day 2 to take over the Class S championship lead from Nick Gosler and Warren Bowie. Marcus Taylor and Mark Deschelaine dropped down to 6th in Class B when a condenser failed, but worked their way back into the lead with 20 kilometres to go. Rookie driver Gavin Cronje and 4 times winner of the Toyota 1000, Robin Houghton, finished 4th in Class E in the Castrol Toyota Hilux and 37 minutes behind the class leaders, with Team Ford Racing's development team of Bobby Rabalusa and Kulili Fakalisa a further 2.5 minutes behind. Brothers Hamish and Alistair Stubbs led Class B for most of the day, but had to settle for 2nd behind former Class B champions Taylor and Deschelaine, while Henry Costain and Rainier Euster lost time in the Atlas Copco BAT when they stopped to give the stranded John Ware Smith and Jeff Minnett some fuel for the Kopanong Hotel Super Team Jimco. Arnold Pistorius and Theo Grobler had a good run in the Raceco and finished 3rd in Class B at the end of day 1. Brothers Mark and Stuart Moffat struggled in the Bosel N1 4x4 Land Rover, which was eventually classified 8th in Class D. Warren Klaassen and Kim Dixon also overcame a host of problems on the Radflow Zarco Light to finish 4th in Class B, while husband and wife Marius and Tracy van Vuren brought their Bosel N1 4x4 Toyota Hilux home 6th in Class E. reigning special vehicle champion, Gil Nel, lost over an hour replacing a distributor on the Look ATE Truggy and had to be happy with 5th in Class B at the overnight stop. While early Class E leaders, Chris Visser and Jaapie Badenhorst, lost time when the Tyco Trucks Toyota Hilux ran out of fuel and they finished 7th in class. Brothers Yuri and Andre Duplessis were the last place finishers in the BB Auto Nissan hardbody. The finish was in sight for Hans Frobler and Richard Leek in the proudly South African Nissan hardbody. They completed the 500-kilometer route in a time of 7 hours, 30 minutes and 19 seconds. Only 2 Class T vehicles survived day 1 of the Toyota 1000, with 5 Class D and 4 Class E vehicles making it into the top 10. A clean run for Atang Mekhekaneni and Bucks Carolyn in the total Jimco. The special vehicle category leaders crossed the line to the tumultuous applause of their huge fan base. The more powerful Class A cars dominated the top placings, with only 4 Class B vehicles in the top 10. In total, only 29 of the 74 starters managed to finish day 1 of the event.
Expectation, heavy on my shoulders. In this dark tunnel, where fear is wrestled and metal forged. Born into the light, into a world without compromise. No matter what happens, I choose to be here. Here I find brothers. Together we find strength and face the gathering storm with honor. Now I will be tested. Now I discover if everything I am is enough. Too fast to see, so I look with instinct. Too loud to hear, so I listen only to the pounding of my heart. This is the time when the answers are most clear. I know this dark. I have been here before, but I will not be here today. I belong in the light, where my brothers wait for me, to join them again and stand once more in the raging storm with honor. If we fall, then we fall together. If we stand as one. Not as one team, not as one band of brothers. We stand in this storm as a nation.
Many of the fans that had followed day 1 of the Toyota 1000 partied through the night at the overnight stop and were on hand to welcome the teams when they arrived to resume battle on Sunday.
Well, it's going to be tight and tough. And luckily we haven't got dust ahead of us. But we're going to enjoy it, I'm sure.
Frobler and Leek had 6 minutes and 9 seconds in hand over Woolwich and Scholthammer and immediately set off to increase their lead.
our car works, I think, better than theirs when with full tanks, and we've got a nice full tank now, so we're nice and fresh after a night's sleep. So hopefully we can make up the time. I'm hoping that they've got to stop for fuel and we don't. So I'm pretty confident, and for us, there's two of the Nissans are out, so now it's a one-on-one. The first time ever. It's one Nissan, one Ford, so may the best man win.
The Team Ford Racing pair was in a confident frame of mind and not at all fazed by what they believed was a relatively small lead the Nissan crew had over them. One puncture was all it needed to bring the rivals back onto even terms. Ipi and Makhali Makhekaneni were even tenser than Father Atang.
Well, we've got a 38-minute lead on the next guy in our class, so we're going to drive the car to the refuel and see how far they're behind us. And we're just going to go on a gentle pace now, and if we need to wind it up later, we will. But the car's in excellent condition, which was our original plan, and I'm very confident we'll get to the finish first.
Tremendous fan support for Makhekaneni and Carolyn, who believed that their only real threat was from Shamea Variawa in the Oven Fresh Biscuits Porter. The strain was showing on Mark Cronnier's face. Was he nervous, intense, pensive? Well, you decide. For my money, I'd say Cronje was nervous because he knew that Alfie Cox and Ralph Pitchford were only 11 minutes behind in the Arnold Chats Cars Nissan Hardbody. Cox usually takes no prisoners and wanted the Class D win more than anything else. Variawa and Dudhia had a point to prove. The Oven Fresh Biscuits Porter was the latest American cutting-edge creation to arrive on our shores and designed to take on all comers. Pablo woke on Sunday and realized he had a chronic diarrhea problem, but decided to start the final leg of the Toyota 1000. He figured he had enough of a lead to deal with all eventualities and continued to extend his lead over Woolridge and Scholthammer in the Team Ford Racing Ranger. Three times Toyota 1000 winner Woolridge knew that, barring any unforeseen problems, he and two times winner Scholthammer could mount a challenge for the lead later in the race. The role of the co-driver, in this case Bucks Carolyn, is invaluable when it comes to keeping the driver in check. Makhekaneni was in fine form and entirely focused on winning the special vehicle category in the Total Jimco. Cronje and Birkin were third in the production vehicle category and the Class D leaders in the Castrol Toyota Hilux 2.7i, but Cox and Pitchford were on a charge and intent on making up as much lost ground as possible in the Arnold Chats Nissan Hardbody. (2000) Special Vehicle Champion Shamea Variawa had been inactive for over 2 seasons and was getting to grips with the BMW 540 V8 powered Porter, while Clint Gibson and Mike Brown were holding station in third place in the Presidium Bat. The KwaZulu-Natal pair finished second on the Nissan Sugarbelt 400 and were desperate for the elusive maiden special vehicle category overall victory. Class E leaders Hugo and Jaap de Bruin completed day one with only first and second gears and had to change the gearbox on the Castrol Toyota Hilux at the overnight stop. Zane Pierce and Henny Vosloo were having their best run yet in the Castrol Toyota Hilux KZTE and were only 56 seconds behind the former Class E champions. Gary Berthold, who switched from a Class A bat to the Class D advanced softness and hardbody, showed that he had adapted well in only his second race in the pickup and was third in Class D, but being chased by Paolo Piazzamosso and Rod Herring in the Castrol Toyota Hilux that had suffered from overheating problems on day one. Husband and wife, Nielsen Zelda van der Walt, were models of consistency in the Nissan hardbody and comfortably ensconced in third place in Class E. Mohammed Noble and Richard Hope were fourth in the special vehicle category and the Class S leaders in the Abe's Furniture Raceco that had so far not missed a beat. KwaZulu-Natal farmer Marcus Taylor and Johannesburg businessman Mark Duchalane had matters under control in Class B and were 11 minutes clear of their closest challengers, Hamish and Alistair Stubbs in the Fence Erect Viper. Victory has so far eluded the brothers, who have established themselves as strong contenders in Class B. Arnold Pistorius and Theo Grobler were still in contention in Class B and had an outside chance of picking up a class win in the Raceco. Hannes Grobler was not in good physical shape, but persevered. Woolridge and Scholthammer were on a charge in the Team Ford Racing Ranger and slowly closing in on the leading Nissan. Oops. That was a close call. Here's a slow-mo replay of the incident, which Woolridge later described as hair-raising. The Ford appeared none the worse for wear after the encounter with that ditch, but soon hereafter the rear differential failed and the crew had to nurse the vehicle to the Midway service point. There was now little hope of them catching the Nissan. Castrol Toyota crew Mark Cronje and Chris Birkin were third overall and leading Class D by 13 minutes from Alfie Cox and Ralph Pitchford in the Arnold Schatz Cars Nissan hardbody, in which they won the class on the Nissan Sugarbelt 400. But Cronje and Birkin have yet to win Class D this season. Class E leaders Hugo and Jaap de Bruin couldn't afford to relax for 1 second because they had Zane Pierce and Henny Vosloo, also in a Castrol Toyota Hilux, still breathing down their necks. Pierce and Vosloo started 2.5 minutes behind the de Bruins and had lost a little ground to trail the Vryburg businessman by 4.5 minutes at this point. Gary Berthold and Siegfried Rosso had moved up 3 places and were third in Class D in the advanced softness and hardbody, but only 28 seconds ahead of Class D winners on the Nissan Dealer 400, Paolo Piazzamosso and Rod Herring in the Castrol Toyota Hilux. The only surviving GBS Racing Nissan hardbody, crewed by JP Augustine and Johan Dubel, would soon retire with a cooked motor after the radiator cradle broke. Zamatin and Bodo Schwegler were, as always, having a steady run in the Mastercraft PlayStation Pajero and just waiting to pick up a place or two as their Class D rivals dropped out of the race. On the special vehicle front, there was just no stopping Atang Magegheneni and Bucks Carolyn in the total Jimco. They had a 40-minute lead over Shamir Variawa and Nadim Dudhir, who had started 72nd on day one and were now second overall in the obscenely fast Oven Fresh Biscuits Porter. Clint Gibson and Mike Brown in the Presidium Bat had dropped to third and were a further 6 minutes down on the race leaders, while Nick Harper and Andrew Chalupsky were fourth in the Bat Racing entry and only 12 minutes ahead of the Class S leaders Mohammed Noble and Richard Hogue in the Abe's Furniture Race Co. Noble and Hogue were shadowed throughout the race by team members in a chase helicopter. The same Chevy LS1 V8 engine as that fitted to the race-leading Total Jimco powers the Raceco. Taylor and de Chalane were still the Class B leaders in the John Rowe built JRE, but had the Stubbs brothers only 14 minutes behind. Giel Nel had moved up to third in the Look ATE Truggy that would unfortunately soon be sidelined with distributor problems, which would allow Warren Claassen and Kim Dixon to nip through and grab third spot in the Radflow Zarco Light. Hannes Krobler and Richard Leek were in spectacular form and had increased their lead over Neil Woolridge and Ken Scholthammer by another minute. Woolridge and Scholthammer continued to nurse the Team Ford Racing Ranger to the designated service point and found the going in front-wheel drive only to be extremely tough, especially in sandy conditions. Special vehicle leaders Atang Magegheneni and Bucks Carolyn had not had a single problem throughout the Toyota 1000, and if they continued at this pace, they were unlikely to be beaten. Gibson and Brown were now second after Variawa and Dudhir had to stop to sort out a slipping clutch, replace a flat wheel and repair a loose airbox. With just on 250 kilometres of the race run and another 250 to go, the order was relatively unchanged, with Hannes Krobler and Richard Leek in the proudly South African Nissan Hardbody still in the lead. Neil Woolridge and Ken Scholthammer were still second and desperate to reach the midway point at Manchwabisi so that the rear differential on the Ford Ranger could be replaced. Atang Magegheneni and Bucks Carolyn were third fastest overall on this sector, with their time of 55 minutes and 1 second, only 7 seconds slower than Class D leaders Mark Cronje and Chris Birkin in the Castrol Toyota Hilux 2.7i. They, in turn, were 5 seconds slower than arch rivals Alfie Cox and Ralph Pitchford in the Arnold Chatz Cars Nissan Hardbody. Cox was in fine form on an event that he has won 3 times on a motorcycle. Gibson and Brown was second overall in the special vehicle category, but over 4 minutes slower than the leaders over this sector, while Hugo and Jaap de Bruin were proving to be uncatchable in the Class E leading Castrol Toyota Hilux. Zane Pierce is an all-rounder and has raced powerboats, SAS cars and V8 saloon cars with success. He and Vosloo were only 9 minutes adrift of the Class E leaders at this point. With the problems of day one now behind them, Castrol Toyota crew Piazza Musso and Hering were starting to pile on the pressure in an effort to make up some of the 48 minutes they had lost the previous day, while Harper and Chalupsky were quite happy to be running third overall in the back racing entry. Sir Martin and Zweigler had earned the reputation for being good Samaritans and were disappointed when no one stopped to help them extract the Mastercraft PlayStation Pajero from a hole. Some low flying from Variawa and Dud here.
You microfine active ingredients that cover your scalp better for more effective dandruff treatment. It works beautifully.
Just under 90 years ago, a unique car company was born. A company that believed that cars were created to be noticed, admired, and enjoyed. Who believed that driving was about exhilaration, liberation. This spirit lives on in the new generation of Mazda. The world's best-selling roadster, the invigorating MX-5. Taking over 60 international awards and its competitors by storm, the stylish Mazda 6. Giving you the freedom to explore life to the full, the adventurous Mazda Drifter. Winning International Engine of the Year award for 2 years running with its rotary-powered Renesis engine, the revolutionary RX-8. And soon, the evocative Mazda 3, an icon in the making. These are the only kind of cars worth driving. Do you feel this way too? Then come out and play with us. Check out mazdacars.co.za.
The stricken Team Ford Racing Ranger limped into the pits at Manchwabisi. In true sporting gesture, Glenn Hall had offered the services of the Nissan crew should the Ford team need some additional help. Woolwich and Scholthammer were 10 minutes down on Grobler and Leek at this point.
Neil, tell us what actually went down today.
About 60, 70 kilometers out, we've lost the back diff, and we've just been battling along in two-wheel drive the whole way, you know. First of all, it made a hell of a noise, and it just got worse and worse. And then we just started limping all the way, and, you know, just to try and make it to here. So we're going to put another back diff in, and hopefully don't lose too much time and still be able to finish second. I don't know. It depends how quick the mechanics can do it, you know. So, yeah, it's one of those things. It's motor racing, yeah.
And I've seen there's true spirit of sportsmanship. Nissan have offered to assist. Are you going to accept that?
Oh, 100%. What we did is we got to a road crossing and there were none of our service people there, so we gave the Nissan guys a note saying, please get our guys to get the diff ready. So I'm glad to see they passed the message on. Excellent. But that's what off-roading is about, you know. It's a great camaraderie. I think it's one of the few forms of motorsport left where drivers still talk to each other, and, you know, there's a good spirit amongst it. You know, there's not much of that left nowadays, so it's good to see.
Cox and Pitchford were now second overall and the Class D leaders on the road, and managed to get out just ahead of the Ford pair, who is now 35 minutes behind the leaders and sandwiched between Cox and Cronje. The reigning Class E champions had a puncture at 100 kilometers into the race and complained that they had to sit in Cox's dust all the way to the service point. Cronje and Birkin were in fact leading Class D by 8 minutes from Cox and Pitchford on corrected time. Stylish driving from former rally champion Hannes Grobler. The proudly South African Nissan hardbody had not missed a beat, and with over 28 minutes in hand, Grobler and Leek could afford to relax their pace a little. With the Team Ford Racing Ranger back in good shape, Woolridge and Scholthammer worked doggedly to reduce the gap and mounted a late charge for the lead. Machaganeni and Carolyn were not under threat and had in fact eased their pace in the total Jimco. Cox and Pitchford were having a no-holds-barred battle with Cronje and Birkin for the Class D win, which would ultimately be decided by mere seconds. The Castrol Toyota lost front-wheel drive soon after this, but it didn't affect Cronje much. Gibson and Brown held station in second place in the special vehicle category, knowing that there was no hope of catching the race leaders. Hugo and Jaap de Bruin were 5th overall in the production vehicle category and comfortably in the Class E lead, while Pearson Fosley seemed to have settled for second place in the Castrol Toyota Hilux KZTE. Gavin Cronje and Robin Houghton had had a tough day, with rookie Cronje suffering from motion sickness. Despite the inconvenience, the pair had advanced steadily up the leaderboard and were 3rd in class. Noble and Hope knew that they had the Class S win in the bag and took no unnecessary chances on the final haul to the finish. Arnold Du Plessis and George Baker's race was run.
Ons het four-wheel drive verloor, toe verloor ons brieke. Toe het ons onttrek en toe wil ons spits toe gaan om te gaan verder spectate toe verloor die agteras ook. Dit is heel.
Less than 100 kilometers to go for Grobler and Leek. A 3rd successive Toyota 1000 victory was now a foregone conclusion for the reigning production vehicle champions. Given Grobler's condition, Woolridge could only ponder what might have been had the Ford Ranger's differential not given up the ghost and put him out of reach of Grobler. Machaganeni and Carolyn complained that it was extremely difficult to maintain concentration on the last 100 kilometers of the route. Cox had the bit between his teeth, knowing full well that every second would count at the finish, and that Marc Cronje, despite only having rear-wheel drive, was whittling away at his slender lead. Cronje and Birkin picked up a puncture soon after this point on the route, something they could ill afford to have happen. The Presidium Bat crew of Clint Gibson and Mike Brown was 2nd overall in the special vehicle category, just under an hour behind the leaders. Class D contenders Paolo Piazzamussa and Rod Herring had a scare when the oil pressure warning light on the Castrol Toyota Hilux came on. They stopped and established that all was okay and continued on their way. Class E leaders Hugo and father Jaap de Bruin were 8 minutes ahead of Zane Pierce and Henny Vosloo in the Castrol Toyota Hilux KZTE at this point. In previous years, the pair used to share driving duties, but last year Jaap decided that Hugo was the faster driver and elected only to navigate. Durban-based businessman Pearson Vosloo failed to finish the first 2 rounds of the ABSA Off-Road Championship and were more intent on finishing the Toyota 1000 and scoring valuable points than challenging for the Class E lead at this stage. Competing in only his second off-road race, former Rotax Max World Karting champion Gavin Cronje was finding the going a little tough in the Castrol Toyota Hilux that was looking a little worse for wear. An interesting battle had developed between Zematin and Dweckler in the Mastercraft PlayStation Pajero and husband and wife Marius and Tracy van Vuren, who swapped their Class D Land Rover for the Class E Bosel N1 4x4 Toyota Hilux this season. With a little more development and a bit of luck, the Van Vurens can be expected to become serious contenders. 2 third-place finishes and a strong finish on the Toyota 1000 in their rookie year will make Team Ford Racing's Rubeluza and Fakalisa serious contenders for the Class E title. The Stubbs brothers were in line for their long-awaited Class B win, while brothers Yuri and Andre Duplessis just wanted to finish and score their first points of the season. Apart from having to stop 6 times because of Grobler's physical condition, the proudly South African Nissan crew had had a trouble-free run. Enjoy the ride. Woolridge and Scholthammer were by now aware of Grobler's condition and were piling on the pressure in the hope that the Nissan crew would make a mistake that would allow the Team Ford Racing pair to steal the lead. Cox and Pitchford were still hard at it, with the Arnold Chatz car's Nissan hardbody not missing a beat, other than running low on fuel on day 1. Cronje, himself a former Rotax Max World Karting champion, and Birkin maintained a blistering pace in the now rear-wheel drive Castrol Toyota Hilux. With the oil pressure scare now behind them, Piazza Musa and Heering were on their way to earning valuable points to add to the 31 they scored on the Nissan Dealer 400, while Hugo de Bruin was as stylish as always and in line for a 3rd successive Class E win in the ABSA Off-Road Championship. 16 valuable championship points awaited Pearson Vosloo if they brought the Castrol Toyota Hilux KZTE home 2nd in Class E, while Gavin Cronje and Robin Houghton were on their way to a maiden finish for the rookie driver who appears to have adapted well to off-road racing. The ever-consistent Henry Zematin and Bodo Schwegler were heading for their 3rd finish of the season and a rich haul of points to boot. Team Ford Ranger development crew Rubeluza and Fakalisa have, in the space of 3 events, become popular members of the off-road racing fraternity and impressed all with their consistency. Marius and Tracy van Vuren have raced together for 4 years and have moved up into the top 10 with the Bosel N1 4x4 Toyota Hilux. On the special vehicle front, the order was much the same as before, with Mekhekeneni and Carolyn in the Total Jimco comfortably in the lead, and over an hour ahead of Clint Gibson and Mike Brown in the 2nd place Presidium batch. The KwaZulu-Natal businessmen were destined to finish second and pick up another 35 points to add to the 35 they earned on the Nissan Sugarbelt 400. Their consistency paid off and they moved up a place on the ABSA Off-Road Championship log. Nick Harper and Andrew Chalupsky were well known for their consistency, and a podium finish on the Toyota 1000 would rocket them from 9th to 4th in the Special Vehicle Championship. Apart from a puncture on day one, Noble and Hope had a clean run in the Abe's Furniture Raceco, and a well-earned class win earned them sufficient points to jump into the Class S Championship lead. Fariawa and Dudhir did well to eventually overtake the Class S Raceco and finish 4th overall in the Oven Fresh Biscuits Porter, which has shown tremendous potential. Hamish and Alistair Stubbs in the slightly battered Fence Erect Viper were rewarded with the Class B win, ahead of Arnold Pistorius and Thea Grobler in the Raceco. The De Bruyn still had time to tow the stricken Castrol Toyota Hilux of Piazza Musso to the finish. A blown engine put paid to their chances of a finish. Hearing was left behind in the bushes, and they were excluded from the results for being towed across the line. The Toyota 1000 is regarded as Botswana's biggest sporting event.
The race has become a very important event. In fact, the government is taking it very seriously. They want to put it in the yearly calendar and make sure that this race takes place every year. In fact, the people themselves are very interested in the race. The enthusiasm and the interest that it has created is unbelievable. And I think everybody right from the top appreciates what's happening in Botswana and the amount of people it's bringing and the difference it makes to the economy. Tourism as well, it brings a lot of people.
The fans had turned out in their thousands and waited in eager anticipation for the leaders to enter the finish chute. Hannes Grobler and Richard Leek achieved their objective, which was to win the Toyota 1000 for the third successive time.
It was very tough today. I had a stomach bug and we had to stop about 5-6 times, but we got to the end. I think I'm a little bit dehydrated. I think we've won our 3 in a row, and that's what makes it very nice. We're very happy to be here.
Woolridge and Scholthammer managed to cut the Nissan pair's lead down to 30 minutes at the finish. Two class wins for Nissan, with Cox and Pitchford edging out rivals Cronje and Birkin by 13 seconds for the Class D win. The De Bruyns picked up their third successive Class E win for Toyota. The moment everyone had been waiting for finally arrived, with Tang Mahekaneni the first Motswana to win the Toyota 1000. What a welcome.
It's incredible. This is unbelievable. It's like a dream come true. I never thought if we won this race, the extent of support would be this magnitude. You know, Marcel, Burks, we did a wonderful job. We had no punches, the car was flawless. I thank our team, everybody, mechanics. I don't know, I'm speechless. It's been a wonderful race.
Good Saturday, John.
And also we thank Total for their support.
We had a wonderful day. We had no problems, and this one's for Mark. We had a wonderful day, and I'm so glad for him. I think he's got more fans here than all of the Botswana president. The whole country's sitting here looking after him. So it was nice to be chauffeured by such a VIP.
I'm very proud. After all, I trained him. Yeah, I taught him how to drive. Bush bashing for that matter. Yeah.
A popular win for Magekeneni and Carolyn, with Class A vehicles occupying the top 10 placings and brothers Hamish and Alistair Stubbs walking away with a Class B win. Toyota salutes the category and class winners of the 2004 Toyota 1000 Desert Race. While Grobler and Leek have extended their production vehicle championship lead to 122 points, the danger men would appear to be Hugo and Jaap de Bruin in the Castrol Toyota Hilux, who have moved to within 30 points of the leaders. Magekeneni is back in the Special Vehicle Championship lead after winning 2 of the 3 rounds of the ABSA Off-Road Championship run to date. Audrey Roots and Dion de Kock are the Class B leaders. The next round of the ABSA Off-Road Championship is the Sun City 400, which takes place at the Pilanesberg Resort on the 23rd and 24th of July. Off-Road South Africa has laid out a route that differs significantly from previous years, but will again be a real test for man and machine and offer excellent spectating opportunities, all within close proximity to Sun City. Last year's Sun City 400 attracted 31 production vehicle and 36 special vehicle entries. Hannes Grobler and Richard Leek trounced the opposition in their proudly South African Nissan hardbody, winning the event by over 30 minutes from teammates Duncan Foss and Mike Griffith. Nissan made a clean sweep in Class D, with the win going to GBS Racing's Hein Grobler and Gerrit Prinsloo in the Nissan hardbody. Arnold Du Plessis and George Baker were second in the BB Auto entry, and Coetzee Labuschagne and Johan Gerber third in another GBS Racing Nissan hardbody. Castrol Toyota Hiluxes dominated Class E, with Mark Premier and Chris Birkin the winners, and Cassie Coetzee and Oki Fourie second. Gary Berthold and Brandon Harkis won Class A in the bat racing entry, with Terence Marsh and Trevor Ayer second in the Jimco, and John Moore and Fred Werner third in the Chenoweth. Clint Gibson drove solo to win the Class B in the Presidium bat, with Marcus Taylor and Mark de Chalane second, and Bez and Dion Bezedno third. Class S was a two-horse race with Mohammed Noor and Mohammed Molson emerging victorious over Nick Gosler and Warren Bowie.
The South African Off-Road Championship was proudly brought to you by ABSA. Speak to ABSA first for fast, flexible vehicles.